They were the most famous celebrity kids you'd never heard of. In the early 2000s, the Osbourne children were everywhere, loud, wild, and impossible to ignore. But today, most people can barely name one. Some walked away from fame, others reshaped it, and one refused it entirely. But what if there were more Osbourne kids than you remember? Whatever happened to Ozzy Osbourne's kids? The truth might surprise you. Before he was a mumbling, lovable TV dad, Ozzy Osbourne was a force of pure chaos. Born in the industrial city of Birmingham, England, he clawed his way out of poverty and into music history as the frontman of Black Sabbath, a band that didn't just play heavy metal, they invented it. With songs like Iron Man and Paranoid, Ozzy became a symbol of rebellion, loud, raw, and dangerous. Parents were horrified, kids were obsessed, but while his fame skyrocketed, so did the damage, the drugs, the arrests, the unpredictable behavior. By the end of the 1970s, Ozzy had spiraled so far out of control that even Black Sabbath had enough. He was fired from his own band. That's when Sharon Osbourne stepped in, a sharp, fearless young woman who saw something in the wreckage. She wasn't just his new manager, she became his anchor. But their partnership sparked a family feud. Sharon's father, legendary music manager Don Arden, had worked with Black Sabbath, and he hated Ozzy. He didn't just disapprove of their relationship, he outright disowned Sharon when she chose Ozzy over the family business. The two wouldn't speak for decades, but Sharon wasn't backing down, and neither was Ozzy. Together they rebuilt his career from the ground up. His solo albums exploded. Crazy Train became a rock anthem. Tours were massive. And somehow, in the middle of all the madness, they started a family. And if you are into classic Hollywood icons, amazing stories, and newly discovered insights, then hit that subscribe button. We are on our way to 10,000 subscribers, and your support will mean a lot to our channel. In 1982, during a whirlwind of chart-topping albums, bat-biting headlines, and hotel destruction, their first daughter, Aimee, was born. In 1984, while Ozzy was deep into the Bark at the Moon tour, Sharon gave birth to their second child, Kelly. Then, in 1985, their youngest, Jack, arrived, as Ozzy was performing behind the Iron Curtain in Moscow. Ozzy once said, "We didn't have a normal life. Why would the kids?" Raised in hotel rooms, tour buses, and chaos, the Osbourne children were born into a life louder and stranger than fiction. But in 2002, when MTV invited the world inside their home for a reality series, not all the kids signed on. One said no, completely, and the others? They might have vanished from fame just as fast as they entered it. So, whatever happened to Ozzy Osbourne's kids? The truth may be more complicated and more surprising than you think. By the early 2000s, Ozzy Osbourne had done what few rock stars ever manage. He survived himself. He was older, soberish, and living in a Beverly Hills mansion with Sharon, their kids, and a pack of dogs that refused to be house-trained. But he was also fading from the mainstream spotlight. Rock was shifting. MTV had changed. That's when Sharon had an idea, a wild one. What if the world saw the real Ozzy? Not just the bat-biting metal god, but the man who wandered around the house in slippers, muttering at the remote, yelling at the pets. MTV was skeptical, but in 2002, the Osbournes aired and instantly became a cultural earthquake. It was messy, hilarious, and completely unscripted. Before the Kardashians, before reality TV became a formula, the Osbournes broke the mold. Viewers weren't just watching a show, they were eavesdropping on an actual family imploding and holding it together at the same time. The show made Ozzy a new kind of star. Sharon became a pop culture powerhouse. Kelly and Jack became instant celebrities. But not everyone in the house wanted to be on camera. Aimee, the oldest child, wanted nothing to do with it. While producers wired up the mansion with microphones and rigged every room with cameras, Aimee quietly packed her things. and moved out. In her words, "It just didn't feel right. I didn't want to grow up in front of the world." To her, the show wasn't an opportunity. It was a line she wouldn't cross. So while the rest of the family leaned into the chaos, Aimee disappeared from the frame. And that's where her story begins. While the rest of the Osbournes were becoming reality TV royalty, Aimee was erasing herself from the picture. The oldest of the Osbourne children, she had already seen too much. The tours, the chaos, the hospital visits, the tabloids. When MTV came calling, she made her choice. "I knew if I stayed, I'd lose who I was trying to become," she later said. So she moved out before filming began. No cameos, no confessional interviews, no spotlight. Instead, she began carving out her own world, far away from the spectacle. Aimee turned to music, performing under the name ARO, her initials. Her sound was moody, cinematic, layered with synth and soul, a stark contrast to her father's guitars and growls. Her lyrics spoke of isolation, identity, and escape, and for the most part she kept her public appearances to a minimum. She once said, "I grew up in front of a circus. My peace came from stepping out of the ring." Today, Aimee lives in Los Angeles, not far from the rest of the family, but very much on her own path. She's never married, no children, no red carpets. Her relationship with the family has been complicated, but not cold. She said she remains in touch with her parents, especially Sharon, but keeps a respectful distance from the public version of the Osbourne name. "We love each other," she once said in an interview, "but we're very different people. I need space. They need noise." In a family where volume is the default setting, Aimee chose silence, not as a rejection, but as self-preservation. And while she may be the least seen Osbourne, she might also be the most self-defined. Aimee was the Osbourne who vanished from the spotlight. Kelly charged into it head first. All attitude, eyeliner, and punk bravado. When the Osbournes hit MTV, Kelly was just 17. She swore like a sailor, dressed like a rebel, and instantly became a pop culture sensation. But growing up on camera was brutal. Kelly once said, "I wasn't acting. That was really me, angry, confused, and completely exposed." She parlayed her fame into a music career with her debut album, Shut Up, and later a hit duet with her dad, a cover of Papa Don't Preach. Still, the pressure cracked her open. Addiction, rehab, relapse, it became a pattern. Kelly was public about her struggles, admitting, "I didn't know how to be okay without being messed up." But like her mother, she had a talent for reinvention. In the 2010s, she re-emerged as a fashion critic and TV personality, co-hosting Fashion Police with Joan Rivers. With her sharp tongue and lavender hair, Kelly became a fashion icon and a media force. But fame isn't always forgiving. In 2015, while guest hosting The View, Kelly made a comment during a debate about immigration that backfired spectacularly. "If you kick every Latino out of this country, then who is going to be cleaning your toilet, Donald Trump?"
If you kick every Latino out of this country, then who is going to be cleaning your toilet, Donald Trump? Oh, that's...
The backlash was immediate. Kelly tried to clarify, saying her comment was intended to criticize Trump, not immigrants, but the damage was done. She later said, "I'm not perfect, I screw up, but I learn, and I own it." The controversy marked a turning point and a pullback. In the years that followed, Kelly focused on recovery, therapy, and privacy. In 2022, she became a mother, giving birth to a son with Slipknot DJ Sid Wilson. She's largely stepped away from full-time TV work, making selective appearances on family projects and podcasts. Still blunt, still bold, but calmer, wiser. "I had to figure out who I was without the cameras," she once said, "because if I didn't, I was going to self-destruct." In a family where survival is its own kind of legacy, Kelly Osbourne might be their toughest phoenix, rising, crashy. If Kelly was the loud one and Aimee was the invisible one, Jack Osbourne was the one who grew up in real time, right in front of us. On the Osbournes, Jack was the sarcastic, tech-obsessed teen with messy hair and a constant eye roll. But behind the pranks and punchlines was a kid quietly falling apart. He started drinking young, too young, and by 13, he was experimenting with hard drugs. At 16, he attempted suicide. At just 17, he checked into rehab, while still filming one of the biggest reality shows on TV. Years later, he said, "I was the poster child for what happens when you give a teenager money, fame, and zero structure." But Jack didn't crash and burn. He recalibrated. In his 20s, he swapped clubs for cameras, behind them this time, becoming a producer, documentarian, and adventurer. He hosted Adrenaline Junkie, trekked across the globe with Ozzy and World Detour, and unexpectedly became a face of the paranormal world in shows like Portals to Hell. Then came a life-altering moment. In 2012, just weeks after the birth of his first daughter, Pearl Clementine, Jack was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis at age 26. Instead of retreating, he went public, using his platform to raise awareness and push for research. And through it all, he kept growing his family. He welcomed 2 more daughters with then-wife Lisa Stelly, Andy Rose in 2015, and Minnie Theodora in 2018. After their divorce, Jack continued co-parenting while focusing on sobriety and his health. In 2022, he welcomed his 4th daughter, Maple Artemis, with his fiancée, interior designer Ari Gearhart. He's now a proud father of 4 girls, calling them his greatest motivators. There's nothing in life that grounds you faster than being outnumbered by tiny, strong-willed humans, he joked in an interview. These days, Jack lives in Los Angeles, still producing, still exploring, and still managing MS with determination. Of all the Osbourne kids, he may have had the wildest start and the most grounded finish, because in a family built on chaos, Jack found clarity. The final chapter of this story didn't really begin until 2025. On July 5th, Ozzy Osbourne, age 76, took the stage at Villa Park in Birmingham one last time. It was the Back to the Beginning concert, a reunion with Black Sabbath's original members, a farewell to the fans, and a full-circle moment in the city where it all began. Just 17 days later, on July 22nd, Ozzy passed away at home, peacefully, quietly, surrounded by family. His death came shockingly soon after his final performance, turning that last show into a historic goodbye. The family released a statement. "It is with more sadness than mere words can convey. A legend was gone, and the world felt it." In Birmingham, thousands of fans lined the streets to say goodbye. Along the route were landmarks tied to his legacy, from the Black Sabbath bench to the bridge bearing his name. Mourners chanted, brass bands played Iron Man. And there, walking behind the hearse, were his children, Aimee, Kelly, Jack, and the others too. Kelly called it the hardest moment of her life, admitting she wouldn't be okay for a while. Jack revealed something few knew. Before their father's death, he and Aimee had almost no relationship. The funeral was the first time in years they'd truly spoken. But grief can do strange things. It can pull people apart or bring them back together. In this case, it did both. Aimee stayed quiet, as always. Kelly mourned loudly, as always. Jack stood somewhere in between. Ozzy's death wasn't just the end of a rock era. It was the final act of a wild, mythic family saga. One that began in the back streets of Birmingham and ended in front of the entire world. The kids, no longer kids, each carry a different piece of that legacy. Aimee, the ghost in the frame, still walks her own path, away from the noise. Kelly, now a mother, continues to wrestle with fame, pain, and public redemption. Jack, the unlikely sole survivor, is now a father of 4, a health warrior, a producer, and a man who has earned his peace the hard way. They are complicated, flawed, famous, but through it all, they are Osbournes. And no matter how far they drift from the bat-biting headlines and reality TV chaos, they'll always be part of the loudest, weirdest, most unforgettable family in rock history.